I was thinking we went to Institute the other night and we were talking about all the stories in the Book of Mormon. We were shown pictures of stories and we were asked what they were. And I was getting kind of bored because I knew most of them. I probably got one wrong because I mistook it for somebody else. And so then it made me think of how I came to know the Book of Mormon and know those stories. And it wasn't until I was 18 when I was at BYU, Idaho. And I had a Book of Mormon Part 2 class. I took Part 2 before I took Part 1 because I didn't know when I was registering what I was doing. I just knew I needed to take some type of class. But it was definitely divine design because it was the second half of the Book of Mormon, and it obviously includes Moroni's promise, Moroni 10:3-5, and we read the whole thing, or at least the last half of it. And I remember I went into the chapel at I think it's the Taylor building, and I sat down. No, it was the Hinckley building. And I sat down. It was December 12th, 2012, 12. And I prayed and I asked if the Book of Mormon was true. And I will never forget the spirit that I felt. And we had just gotten done watching a movie called How Rare a Possession. And it was a wonderful movie. I would go watch it. It's on YouTube for free. But I just remember I started crying and I took out a piece of paper and I wrote down all the feelings that I was feeling. And I have it in my scriptures to this day still. So I'll never forget that day.
That's a pretty cool story. I've actually never heard that story. I was 18 as well when I was introduced to the gospel of Jesus Christ as restored through the prophet Joseph Smith. And therefore also the Book of Mormon. And the Book of Mormon was very interesting to me because I had attempted to read the Bible plenty of times when I was growing up. We didn't live in a necessarily religious household, but I knew that my mother and father both believed in God and were Christian. And so I had an interest in Christianity, and I wanted to know more about the Bible and what it taught. And so, but it was so difficult to, get through the Bible, and of course, thinking linearly, starting in Genesis, trying to work your way up. It's not really realistic for a young kid. It's more of something where you go and you seek through it. But with the Book of Mormon, when I first started reading it, I did start at the very beginning. And it's really interesting because it is just a story. It starts with a family leaving Jerusalem around 600 BC. And it talks about their travels and some of their challenges and ultimately their mission, their commission from the Lord. And this whole podcast is really just about the Book of Mormon cover to cover. I think that's really what I wanted it to be. And
yeah, I think a vision that I have that we can incorporate together is really taking what we learn and applying it to our daily life. One example is Nephi and his family in the very beginning. How that applies to us now, because it was safe for us. No one else read this book when it was being made. It was specifically for our day, for the restoration, and the restoration is ongoing. And so I think there's living words and things that we can take from the Book of Mormon and apply into our daily lives. And in a talk by President Nelson, the Book of Mormon, What Would Your Life Be Like Without It? He promises that as you read it every day, you'll have power in your everyday decisions. And so I think that there's a power that comes from the book that we can access in our life, in our lives and in our families and individually, that just help us become who Christ and our Heavenly Father want us to be.